University of Pennsylvania and a columnist for MSNBC Daily. She's also the author of White Evangelical Racism: The Politics of Morality in America. All right, straight ahead on another hour of Velshi. With the first debate just days away, President Biden is studying at Camp David. Donald Trump had this to say about the president's prep.
Now, Crooked Joe's gone to a log cabin to study, prepare. No, he didn't. He's sleeping now. Because they want to get him good and strong, so a little before debate time, he gets a shot in the ass.
Hey, good morning. It's Sunday, June the 23rd, 1 month after a jury found him guilty. Donald Trump will do something no other convicted criminal has ever done before: participate in a presidential debate. In a few days, the twice impeached, recently convicted ex-president will face off against the sitting president, Joe Biden, in their first showdown since the 2020 election cycle. They'll both be in Atlanta on Thursday to participate in the first of two scheduled general election debates this season. It will last 90 minutes, and both campaigns have agreed for it to take place in a television studio without an audience. The debate will take place a month after Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, and just 2 weeks before he's set to return to court for his sentencing hearing. Neither candidate has taken part in a nationally televised debate since their last matchup in the fall of 2020, and recent reports indicate that they're taking very different approaches to preparing for this week's debate. Biden will spend several days hunkered down at Camp David, developing plans and strategies with some of his closest advisors. His former White House chief of staff, Ron Klain, has taken time off from his current job to get the president ready for both of this year's debates. Klain, on the left here, is one of Biden's closest and most trusted confidants. He's also an experienced strategist who's helped nearly every Democratic presidential candidate since the 1990s prepare for the debates. The president's personal attorney, this man, Bob Bauer, will also lend the campaign a hand. He'll stand in as Trump in the mock debates that the team plans to stage in the days ahead, a role that he also took on to help Biden prepare in 2020. A rotating cast of about a dozen other advisors have also been tapped to help the president prepare for Thursday. Meanwhile, here's what Donald Trump told NBC yesterday when he was asked what his strategy is for preparing for the debate.
My strategy is very simple. Make America great again, that's all. Because our country's going to hell. And we're going to turn it around fast. There's no strategy. We're going to turn it around fast.
We're going to turn it around fast. There's no strategy. We're going to turn it around fast. Trump's team has been trying to give off the impression that the former president isn't worried at all about facing off against Biden. They say the campaign trail has been enough of a preparation for Trump, and they've got no plans, as you heard him say, to stage mock debates. NBC's reporting, however, indicates that there's at least some preparation happening in the Trump camp. The former president has held informal policy sessions with aides, advisors, and lawmakers, including North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and Senators J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, all of whom are considered to be contenders for the vice presidential slot on his ticket. They're also discussing how to respond to inevitable questions about Trump's recent criminal conviction and his role in the January 6th insurrection, and how to rein in the former president's rhetoric. Now, that last point is particularly notable. Trump's campaign has repeatedly and often unfairly used selectively edited clips to portray Biden as old and feeble-minded. But Trump is prone to gaffes as well. During his speech last week, he bragged about acing a cognitive test and then repeatedly got the doctor's name wrong. He's mixed up presidents, Biden and Obama, multiple times. He's confused Nancy Pelosi for Nikki Haley. And for those who aren't familiar with Trump's long-winded speeches, his stream of consciousness ramblings are going to sound absolutely incoherent. When his teleprompter malfunctioned at a rally in Nevada earlier this month, Trump went off script and told a long and meandering story involving an MIT professor, electric boats, and whether he prefers electrocution to being eaten by sharks. At another rally, he praised, quote, the late, great Hannibal Lecter, the fictional cannibal serial killer featured in the film The Silence of the Lambs. He also added that Lecter is, quote, a wonderful man. At two different events yesterday, he said that he had proposed starting a, quote, migrant league of fighters, a UFC-style sports league that would pit migrants against each other. He added, quote, it's not the worst idea I've ever had, end quote. It's a bizarre proposition that reminds people of his barbaric and dehumanizing position toward non-white immigrants. Trump may feel like he's got the upper hand coming into this debate, but that's largely because he's been stuck inside his bubble. His incoherent and strange diatribes may play well with his diehard rally-goers, but it might be perceived differently by the public, who might see him simply as an undisciplined candidate leading an unserious campaign. Joining me now are Tim O'Brien. He's the senior executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion and author of Trump Nation, The Art of Being the Donald, and Jennifer Rubin, opinion writer for The Washington Post and host of Jen Rubin's Green Room podcast. She's also the author of Resistance, How Women Save Democracy from Donald Trump. Both are MSNBC political analysts. And good morning to both of you. Thank you for being with us. Jen, let me start with you, because you have been drawing a lot of attention to inconsistencies and unusual things that Donald Trump has been saying these days. This will be the first test in which he's not in a courtroom, which is a completely controlled environment, but he's not at a rally, which is an entirely uncontrolled environment for him. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, first of all, we have to assume that he's going to show up. Lately, of course, he's been talking that he wanted a drug test, and he's not sure if Biden is really operating without medical inducement. So let's just assume, for sake of argument, that he actually is going to show up. He's done something very dumb, which is to lower expectations so that if Joe Biden simply makes it to the podium and doesn't fall asleep or bump his head, he's going to look much better to the audience than they have been prepared to see. But I think Donald Trump's problem is he's nuts. He's incoherent. He can't answer a question directly. It was very interesting in that clip you showed. He was asked his strategy about the debates, and he simply said, "Make America great." His brain does not connect between questions and answers. He's not able to formulate a coherent response. He has aphasia where he can't find a word, or he makes a sound rather than a word. And he is easily baited, easily angered. So it'll be very interesting to see if Joe Biden turns to him and says, "Why didn't you tell us about that shark and the electrocution story one more time?" I think he is very easily baited. I think he's going to be extremely aggressive. That's how he gets through these things in the past. The other thing that is going to be a problem for him, really, too, is there's no studio audience. So he's going to be playing for laughs or applause, and there will be none. And the second is his mic gets switched off when President Biden is speaking. So those are two disadvantages that he's going to have to deal with.
Because he normally likes those interjections while someone else is speaking. Tim, in a new piece from Bloomberg today, you write that Thursday's debate is what the moment demands. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think it's risky for any incumbent president to take on a challenger in a debate. There's a long history of incumbents getting derailed by debates. Some recover from it, some don't. Obama recovered from it in 2012. Gerald Ford did not recover from it in 1976. But I think the Biden camp is taking a calculated risk here, and I commend them for it, because I think beyond the important policy issues that will come up in this debate around immigration and the economy and Donald Trump being a convicted felon, I think voters need to see Biden shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump, because there is this myth that Joe Biden is somehow more feeble or less acute or less present than Donald Trump. And that Donald Trump is powered by Red Bull and is a giant slayer. And the reality is that Donald Trump has become seriously degraded over the last 8 years, and even over the last 4 since he left the White House. As you know, Ali, I've been covering Trump for about over 30 years, and I've never seen him this absent-minded, this incoherent, this odd, this unhinged. He walks with a slight bent in his shoulders. I was sitting in the courtroom in New York during his criminal trial, and it struck me how completely feeble and vulnerable he looked. And the Trump people have been able to, feed off of this idea that Biden is somehow older or more of a senior than Trump. So now they will be on a stage together in an environment, as Jennifer noted, that isn't advantageous to Trump. He prefers being a frat boy during debates. In addition to his mic being turned off and no live studio audience, he's not allowed to have notes. So in addition to just, I think, the fact that Biden can show to voters that he is more vital, he is a better public servant, and he is more in command of the facts than Donald Trump. The Trump team is taking a risk that baby Huey, who never prepares for anything, can somehow BS his way through this performance. And that's dangerous for him, I think, because he doesn't perform well when he's held to account in a non-performative way. We saw that in a courtroom. And I think this debate stage is a political version of the same thing.
Jen, one of the issues that Republicans are trying to make an issue is an important one. It's the issue of immigration right now. We've talked about this many times. There are real problems and there are potentially real solutions. Donald Trump offered one yesterday, his proposal of having a migrant league of fighters in which migrants fight against one another. This is sort of an issue because Joe Biden is sitting here at Camp David doing real preparation around real policies. How's this going to work? Because without the studio audience, the Migrant League of Fighters probably doesn't appeal to the mass of Americans, even those who really do believe immigration is a serious matter that needs to be dealt with.
Well, that's the matchup here. You have one serious person and one guy, eating the chess pieces off the table. So it is going to be a little weird. We'll see if Donald Trump repeats that. But I think Biden has to do three things. One, he has to remind the American people that essentially Trump is channeling Adolf Hitler. When he talks about poisoning the blood, when he talks about purity, this is sheer fascism. And it affects not only immigrants coming in, but every person in America. Second thing I think he's got to do is make the point again and again that he came up with a solution. Donald Trump nixed it. He doesn't want a solution. He wants a mess, just like he wants the stock market to crash, just like he wants other bad things to happen to America. He, the president, actually has a answer for all of this. And I think the third thing is that he just needs to show that Donald Trump is just unhinged. He claims he built the wall. He never built the wall. He has this bizarro plan, as you point out, to have these people fight. His brain is broken, and it's particularly broken when he starts talking about immigrants who he loathes and who he needs to vilify and demonize in order to get his base cranked up to this infuriated, sheerly emotional level of anger.
Tim, it's a bit of a fool's errand to try and figure out what Donald Trump means when he says something, but he does this thing where he says one thing and says it means something else, right? He did this with the bloodbath as it related to Chinese electric vehicles coming from Mexico or whatever. He was at the Faith and Freedom Conference